This is a Google search conducted on Thursday, May 8, 2025. It's 4:06 a.m. This is doing an ordinary Google search under my full name, which is what I publish, and also pursuant to what it is that is published online regarding documentation, which is evidence, which is designed to be published on the internet in order to get the attention of the government in order to expose what the corrupt entity, the city, the civilian population, what the state of California is engaging in order to enforce your rights. As I've also shown, the entity that is gang stalking via the court system as well, with regard to the corruption and with regard to the absence of having actual jurisdiction, while the entity engages in what are methods of kidnapping via criminal defamation. This is the malicious assertion of false charges, and it's malicious and not merely false charges because the entity is keeping me under surveillance and then asserting, with regard to false charges, fully aware of the fact that I've committed no crimes, and manufacturing information in order to support such malicious assertions regarding any alleged commission of crimes. And then the entity is engaging in what is a kidnapping through the criminal justice system. The entity is doing the same thing with regard to the intent to kidnap via criminal defamation upon kidnapping, and then manufacturing information in order to, again, keep one kidnapped in a facility where the entity will continuously engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, which is gang stalking. It's the demonic activity in the demonic environment, which is underway in the same facilities where the entity seeks to keep an American citizen kidnapped, which is what San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department is demonstrating, as I've documented them engaged in repeated acts of kidnapping where they are gang stalking in the facilities throughout San Bernardino County. The entity that is engaging in what is the pattern of conduct is engaged in what is the P.O.C. of surveillance, which is underway online, and the surveillance system, which is the intent to obstruct justice, is also committed through the suppression of evidence that I am publishing on the video of the internet, evidence that is serving to blow the whistle to attract attention, and the entity is engaging in what is a means of obstruction of justice. And this is what is relevant with regard to doing an ordinary Google search for my name, which is going to prompt what is the California bar. But however, I want to be clear, I have documented in the past, Google is a third party. So as I've shown, the P.O.C. YouTube is Google. They're a third party, and the entity that's engaging in federal group stalking monitoring, as I've exposed it, is also aware of everything that I expose about the pattern of conduct. And I have documented before doing an ordinary Google search, and my bar number is nowhere obviously appearing, generating, such that it should be one of the first to appear, as it is my name. But it is not. I have documented where the entity has my bar number for purposes of, again, all of it is about the way that you are made to look on the surface. So nothing about a bar number, nothing about an association as an attorney, and that was intentionally committed with regard to what is very real with regard to online surveillance. And I happen to be one that is publishing evidence about public corruption that's ongoing in California, surveillance that's underway amongst the government and the civilian population, surveillance that is also underway online. And Google has participated in that by suppressing things such as my California bar licensure, and the status of it, and pushing other things up toward the top of the results, things that are defamatory in substance and defamatory also on its face with people of the state. Reddit. This is what I've documented back in 2020. Reddit is put at the forefront of Google results, and it is in 2020. It included a large picture of myself and a series, hundreds of comments with regard to mental illness. And these are the people of the state that are gang stalking. They just get on the internet and they engage in what is making defamatory comments, which is designed to render the documentation about a very real criminal conduct that the government is engaging in as illegitimate. And that is injustice. And I want to be clear, this is not private speech either. First of all, on the internet, surveillance is underway. And second of all, the government that is gang stalking through the people of the state is engaging in what is facilitation of the same pattern of conduct through the people of the state who are state actors, speaking as the state and acting as a third party, facilitating the pattern of conduct to keep it concealed, to obstruct justice, to render illegitimate both the documentation and that person who is subject to criminal defamation. The same criminal defamation that you can hear while I'm subject to gang stalking, as I document on video, and the evidence is proving that, and the audible activity of a gang stalker, which is immediately published because monitoring is underway, is serving to, albeit failing. Nevertheless, it's still criminal while the entity seeks to render documentation that you are publishing as illegitimate. It's the tactic of the gang stalking entity. But I want to speak to the significance of that. And I wanted to do a Google search to show what is the bar licensure. And the bar licensure is speaking to what is ongoing damages. The entity that's been gang stalking is creating what is prohibitive with regard to the financial inability to pay fees, never having any discipline issues whatsoever, and up to date with regard to MCLE requirements. If you're familiar with the requirements to practice law, it is merely financial with regard to not paying fees. And this is for a series of years while the state of California has been gang stalking. The same state bar of California that is engaged in what is the P.O.C., the gang stalking attorneys, by the way, engaged in that pattern of conduct. But nonetheless, the entity is maintaining what is an intentionally maintained list of results where surveillance is underway. You're understanding that this is intentional and deliberate as well. It's not coincidental. It's not based on some, for example, statistics and based on, no, surveillance is underway on the internet. And I am documenting evidence. I am publishing it online. And the purpose is to suppress that evidence. And that's why my YouTube channel, which would be the most obvious result, should show up at the front. Erica Lorraine Spencer is my name, the P.O.C., and it does not generate as one of the top results, and it should. That's a deliberate act to suppress evidence by the entity that knows exactly what it is that I'm documenting and publishing online. Google is also a third party engaging in the pattern of conduct literally on its website, by the way. This is not a coincidence, and I've documented this before 2025. The entity has multiple other podcasts, which are relevant, but not the YouTube channel, where I am publishing all of the video evidence, where I am publishing additional links, including the link to my P.O.C. website. And so this is relevant with regard to, this isn't even me. I don't have a TikTok channel. So someone that is looking for Erica Lorraine Spencer, you're not going to find me. This is not an accident. This is understanding the all of the malice behind the ongoing surveillance that's underway in the United States and on the venue of the internet. The entity is engaging in what is publishing information that both applies, but it actually doesn't apply, because the obvious results should be both the P.O.C. website, all right, where you are Googling Erica Lorraine Spencer and my name is clearly associated with the website, with the P.O.C. And this is not what is generating at one of the top results of Google. This is not a failure or an inaccuracy. This is by design with regard to surveillance that is underway on the venue of the internet. Were there something that I was putting up, that I was publishing, that was embarrassing to me? And by embarrassing, I mean something that is not probative regarding the pattern of conduct, contrary to how the demon possessed initially sought to falsely depict my character as I published evidence about their mental illness while they gang stalk another person. The entity is, if I had nude photos, if I had some sort of nonsense, some sort of barbaric behavior that I'm giving, it would be at the top of the results. That's my point. The entity has information that's both irrelevant to me, not applying to me. I'm not on TikTok. Nothing about me on TikTok is relevant to me. And the entity has what is the podcast information, but it doesn't have the most direct podcast and website, which would be here on YouTube, which is why it's not showing up at the top of the results. Understand that this is intentional because on the YouTube channel, again, where it's nowhere on the first page, and I also want to show you this. This is Facebook. I don't maintain this Facebook channel anymore. It's not accessible. I don't log into it. This is also intentional with regard to keeping it on. This is from 2022. This was removed in January of 2023 when I was released from kidnapping, removing my Facebook pages. But again, the entity is not generating most recent and up-to-date and accurate results, but keeping intentionally information that it's relevant because the same P.O.C. is underway, but it's irrelevant with regard to somebody being able to find me and find the evidence, which is needful when you are exposing to the federal government and requesting help, trying to blow the whistle, seeking to enforce your rights against the state that is keeping you under surveillance and furtherance of murdering and kidnapping you by criminal defamation. This is an intentional act of obstruction of justice where surveillance is underway on the internet. That's why it's relevant to obstruction of justice. It is intentional. All right. It is in conformity to the P.O.C. of suppressing state surveillance as I'm exposing it while I am subject to gang stalking in the state. Having Odyssey, the podcast, is exposing the documentation that I have published, but it's only exposing a fraction of it. The entity is engaging in the P.O.C. and is engaging what is monitoring because there's no malfunction of internet. This is the pattern of conduct underway, and the entity is interfering with internet access while you are looking at what is the P.O.C. So I will go ahead and show you what is on Odyssey. Because I do have an Odyssey. Well, it's not that I have it, but everything that you publish with regard to podcast, Odyssey will automatically generate what you have actually online. So this is an automatic feed. Yeah, the internet is being interfered with. This is intentional with regard to monitoring. This is needful. All right. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct while they are monitoring on the venue of the internet. So this is relevant to Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. This is federal stalking conduct while the entity is aware that I'm documenting what is Google's engagement in the pattern of conduct. Google is engaged in federal stalking on the venue of the internet, maintaining social media platforms, and engaging what is a method of concealing what is surveillance that I'm exposing, surveillance that is underway while I'm being gang stalked pursuant to a surveillance system and being kept under surveillance for purposes of what is gang stalking in an effort to falsely depict the character of the one who is indeed being targeted in the surveillance state, which is underway in the United States, and also with regard to an intent to obstruct justice, suppressing that evidence. That's what's relevant while, again, a website is not generating and the internet is being interfered with. It's not a malfunction. There is actually in the specific environment no malfunctions. The entity is maintaining obsessive control over everything that surrounds you. And this is relevant to what is not generating at the top of the results, which it should because it's one of the most relevant results. It's also not a coincidence because my website is what is attached to the YouTube channel, which has all of the video documentation readily available for anyone to see were they to have access to my YouTube channel, which is intentionally not included in the which is intentionally not included at the in the most relevant results, which would be at the top of the website. Again, the Amazon and the TikTok. This TikTok doesn't belong to me. iHeart. They are merely filtering in what it is that I publish on my from the RSS feed. They are not the most relevant and they are not necessarily the most effective means of accessing the evidence that I'm publishing in video and images on the Google Drive, and also that which is showing. This is indeed the Apple podcast, and that's why it opens up in the Apple because this is a MacBook. And so this is the link to the Apple podcast that has it. This is a Facebook that's no longer maintained. This is showing Listen Notes, which is another podcast platform on social media. This is, again, a means of criminal defamation by the entity. Reddit is a third-party facilitating venue, and the people of the state merely open up a thread and engage in criminal defamation to render illegitimate evidence that is published on the internet. This is the criminal tactic of criminal defamation on the venue of the internet, which is already documented in 2020. This same thing is on here. The picture and my YouTube channel is removed, and a lot of the comments have been removed. It's criminal defamation committed by Reddit and the people of the state on the venue of that online forum, and it's state action. Reddit's not a private actor. Surveillance is underway in the United States. You're understanding how they're third parties. This is not my Instagram. This is an old Facebook channel that is no longer maintained. Clicking on any of the links, you will not access anything that has to do with accurate and up-to-date documentation, which would be readily identifiable, or YouTube filtering at the top of the Google results, which is intentional and deliberate. Again, because once you access YouTube, it's accessing you to all the documentation that I am currently maintaining on the venue of the internet, where my name is directly associated with it, where all of the documentation against the United States government, that includes the state of California, that is gang stalking, is readily accessible. This is intentional with regard to the pattern of conduct. These are the social media platforms where you can access the podcast. But again, the podcast is a portion of the documentation where you are looking at all of the additional documentation that I have published on the website, the multiple kidnappings the entity is engaged in, which are each additional acts of criminal acts of obstruction of justice. The documentation showing the character of the people of the state, the demon possessed, who have engaged in acts of violence, harassment, criminal defamation, as I'm documenting, and acts of kidnapping and harassment, because I'm exposing the criminal conduct that they're engaging in as a society. This is where the entity is intentionally removing my website, the P.O.C. website, which is up to date, up to the minute, up to the date, up to date documentation. This is also intentional, where you are clicking on what is up to date as of May 2025. As of the current date, you can click on the documentation and see what I am publishing up to the minute as I remain subject to the pattern of conduct. It's very intentional that Google is not generating the most relevant and most up to date documentation. Even on the second page, YouTube is not generated, and YouTube is one of the most relevant results. None of this has anything to do with me. This is pursuant to what is state surveillance and the entity that is intending to suppress evidence against me, while, by the way, simultaneously, I still remain subject to federal group stalking and monitoring, and the entity is engaged in ongoing theft of my content and use of my content for purposes of what is obstruction of justice tactics. All right. The entity is engaging in this simultaneously while on the venue of the internet. My evidence is being suppressed from view, which I'm also documenting literally on the YouTube channel itself with regard to the views, that again, hundreds of views on videos, and then views that also disappear, goes back to zero. The entity that will attract hundreds of views to a random video, such as things regarding hazard lights, which is relevant to stalking with light in the path in the specific environment, but absent knowledge of all the totality of circumstances where you're recognizing gang stalking in that specific environment in a demonic manner, which is understood by a government acting as a population. You're just looking at a vehicle with hazard lights on, and that is designed as attention is deliberately attracted by the same entity that creates threads on the internet and engages in what is nothing other than criminal defamation to render a documentation illegitimate. When you are picking out videos to give hundreds of attraction of views to in order to render illegitimate what the whole purpose of all the evidence is. And that is one of the tactics on the venue of the internet, including YouTube, where all of the evidence is available, all of the video evidence and the podcast documentation. This is deliberate with regard to Google as a third party. And Google is an example of what is underway on the venue of the internet, where my website, which is, this is the POC.wordpress.com, and the P.O.C., the YouTube channel, are not, they are the most relevant results underneath my, what would be my California bar licensure status. And this is intentionally left out. So I just want to make sure I do a screen recording showing what is a method of obstruction of justice. You're looking at the far end. None of this is relevant to what is Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is the entity's tactic with regard to the pattern of conduct seeking to obstruct justice by having such irrelevant and the inability to access evidence that I am publishing, and that the ordinary target individual would be publishing on the internet where the government is targeting you, where you are kept under surveillance, and it is necessary to publish it online because of the criminal conduct that the corrupt courts are engaging in. It is notable, okay, and I'd be remiss to state that there is no legitimate investigation going on where my evidence is being suppressed in this manner. My evidence is being suppressed on the venue of the internet, where I am publishing it online, and the entity is intentionally suppressing my evidence. I have been subject to this not only by the people of the state, not only by the government, but YouTube itself, that uses its platform to engage in what are means of discriminating against my content that's not violating their policies whatsoever, especially because the government is engaged in what is gang stalking, furtherance of murder and kidnapping. That's not going to violate YouTube's policy with regard to trying to educate the public and expose what is unlawful and inhumane conduct that is serving to protect the life of someone that's being bullied by the government, for example, but that's being bullied by the civilian population. That is not violating any sort of policy. And Google also is aware of the substance of what I'm documenting. Google is a third party on the in California, and also a third party on the venue of the internet where surveillance is underway. This is a screen recording and designed to capture what is the purpose behind the inability to access my evidence as you do an ordinary search for my name. What would be the P.O.C. as well is something that I'm searching. And again, the most relevant result should be my YouTube channel. The P.O.C. should be my P.O.C. website, the P.O.C. associated with Erica Lorraine Spencer. My name is directly associated with that. And this is intentionally not a part of what is going to generate were anyone to do a Google search pertaining to myself, as I remain subject to federal group stalking and monitoring, which is criminal conduct committed by the government and the people of the state who are in the shoes of the government. And this is simultaneous to what is the entity stealing my content and also misrepresenting the substance, the purpose of the content, misrepresenting ownership of the content, profiting from misuse of my and theft of my content, and also still gang stalking me in real time, which I'm documenting as I remain subject to it, as I am in California at Woodside Senior Apartment, subject to the P.O.C.,
The
which
elements
I'm
are monitoring
documenting.
together. All right, the sun is not
This
going
is
to be any sort
documented
of
today.
object, by the way. That creates light activity like you're seeing on this. This is impossible light activity. While the demons engage in what is criminal defamation, that's the pattern of the gate that you can see up here. That's this gate right here. That's this gate right here. And it's manifesting on the top, on the living room wall. That's impossible light activity with regard to criminal surveillance that the city of Ontario is sharing with Tracy Banks, who is together engaging in criminal defamation, stating that she needs to put me away, stating that she's hands on me. This is a sex offender. This is somebody that's harassing while she's being documented for terrorism and psychological torture with the city of Ontario that shares in the criminal engagement in that pattern of conduct amongst engineer light in the specific environment that is shared with what is Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, where LAPD is documented very heavily gang stalking today. This is light again manifesting in the shade. You can see manifesting in the shade. That is the pattern of what is, again, impossible light, the pattern.
Remember, the significance of the environment is relevant to understanding and recognizing what is surveillance, which is demonic in its nature. That's why you're looking at the character of the light. That's why you're looking at the environment at Tracy Banks's front door on May 7, 2025, when I documented this. The fake sun, as I've referred to it, not the natural environment, is stationary over her front door from 9:58 a.m. until I'm capturing this video, which ends at 2:18 p.m. That's a supernatural occurrence, especially while I'm documenting the maintenance of the light source like I documented on this day in 2024. Not only that, as I open up the patio blinds and what is shade, light is manifesting, showing the shadow of the patio furniture that's outside of the apartment, and a third party group stalker walks in it and the shadow of his body moves on the living room wall. That's called stalking with light. This is the pattern of conduct of what is gang stalking, and the entity is doing it in that specific environment, which defies nature. This is what I remain subject to in real time. The documentation is being published on the venue of the internet. On the venue itself, YouTube, it is being suppressed. This is intentional. Doing a Google search for my name and my documentation, it is being suppressed while I remain subject to this criminal pattern of conduct, while the entity is engaging what is ongoing criminal acts of obstruction of justice, as I'm documenting criminal defamation, harassment, threats to engage in kidnapping, while I'm still being subject to gang stalking. The entity is suppressing my evidence. It's an ongoing threat to my life and safety and well-being. The entity is doing this while, again, misusing my content, because as you can see, you're not seeing my face speaking. I am capturing the content, the environment, the gang stalking P.O.C. And absent knowing that there is a voice speaking. If it's on mute, then you're just looking at the content and you're looking at my African American hand. It's clearly a woman and it's clearly a black woman, and it's my voice, but the entity is engaging what is stealing my property when you're not looking at my face in all of these videos. This is relevant to understanding the P.O.C. It's relevant to the environment that I'm capturing in this video.
The sidewalk. In the shade, that's all shade right there. None of that is sun. It's the same pattern of conduct of stalking with light inside of the apartment. This is where the demons are engaged in what is criminal defamation as you document them. That's speaking to the supernatural character and the content of the speech of the gang stalkers who are demon possessed. That's the malice of Satan, okay? Do you witness what is assault and battery by the entity gang stalking, engaging in what is criminal summoning together? That's the state that's gang stalking under the fake sun. These are the demon possessed who are also monitoring all the evidence that's published on the internet, especially as the city of Los Angeles is documented with regard to the very heavily gang stalkers of the LAPD, who did so under an idle fake sun that is today in 2024 remaining over my office, not over Tracy Banks' front door, where she's engaging in what is an assault and battery as an entity, criminal defamation as an entity, the entity engaging in criminal summoning, sounding sirens, and doing so while I am documenting them. This is what the entity is subject to. That's why you're subject to federal prison. Outside, crossing path, the same demons of Unit 41.
Okay, so walking in the shade will never create the shadow of your head passing through the shadow of this object right here that's appearing on the inside of the apartment. That's called, as I've referred to it, impossible light activity. It's pursuant to what is, first of all, knowledge of who I am and what I'm doing because of the supernatural character. That supernatural experience is a pattern of conduct as well. This is revealing what is indeed surveillance, and surveillance is also underway on the internet while my life is continuously under threat by the gang stalkers who are the city of Ontario, who are targeting with the people of the state. That's what he represents at the apartment complex where I remain subject to this pattern of conduct. And the entity is doing so while simultaneously suppressing my evidence about it on the venue of the internet. This is an unlawful threat that I remain subject to. It's a documented pattern. You'll see the same thing inside of the same apartment Here.
Identifying it while I open the blinds, and you're looking at a covered patio where no sun is bending down to be beside this patio door, showing those sunlight. This is all shade. That's the purpose of having structures like this, by the way. And you have what is the opening up the blinds, which is the placement of engineered light that you see. You see multiple shadows. You see my hand.
That's absolutely impossible light activity. It's the shadow of me holding up my cell phone, and you can not only see a shadow, but two of them in the depths of the dark bedroom while it is covered in shade. Light is manifesting out of nowhere. This is regarding the malicious engagement and what is a surveillance system, which is entirely demonic. And the entity is deliberately averting attention away from the videos that are showing the probative value of stalking with light in the way in which surveillance is underway by the demon-possessed and the corrupt government that's engaged in what is a matter of public corruption. It's a demonic pattern of conduct. The entity would rather avert attention to things where you are not recognizing the significance of all of what the pattern of conduct includes, which includes stalking with light, with vehicles, with your hazard lights on. When you're what is an engineered light, it's not sunlight. So this is where a vehicle in the path, in the environment where a sun sits over you all day long, not the natural environment, and you use something like a vehicle with hazard lights on. But absence your knowledge about that, when you're just going on the YouTube channel and you're just looking at what is the video that got the most views, this is an intentional, deliberate act with regard to an effort to avert attention away from highly damning evidence regarding what is not only demon possession by a gang stalking government that uses satanic methods of targeting someone in a manner that's supposed to be able to falsely depict your character when you're not able to prove it. Not only have I proved it, the entity is engaging in suppressing my evidence proving that. This is relevant to what is obstruction of justice, and it's also occurring on YouTube itself. YouTube is the same third-party Google.
Holding my phone. This is demonic. And the people of the state, including the government that you see heavily stalking in helicopters and in airplanes, commercial airline planes, this is the criminal monitoring system. And this is the enabling for a whole population of demons who are listening to every word that I say, every movement that I make, everything that I'm doing when I'm conscious and unconscious. The demons are so obsessed, they listen to me breathe. They are aware of when my panties are down in the bathroom, and so is the sex offender and the demon-possessed group stalker who's acting with the government, the state, to try to sacrifice me, which a government engages in group stalking. It's absolutely demonic. So is this light activity. Let me zoom out again, looking at. That is never, ever happening from sunlight. This is never happening from opening your blinds. I want you to see the detailed examination of this environment. Okay? That's not sunlight, nor is this occurring in some sort of isolated universe where nobody around you is a part of the environment that you're in.
All right, this is the malice of the entity that is very much aware of how probative my evidence regarding both the demonic character and the criminal aspect regarding federal group stalking and monitoring. It's that which the people of the state are engaging in, and the entity is simultaneously suppressing my evidence that directly proves it, doing so in an ongoing effort to obstruct justice and also to falsely depict my character. This is documentation serving for what is establishing the entity that's engaged in what are multiple kidnappings upon what is defamation, and also while doing so suppressing my evidence that where the entity has been defeated because I've proven the fact that they are stalking and monitoring, engaging in surveillance in a manner that is also terrorizing and psychologically harmful, and it's satanic at that, and it's government conduct that is done in concert with the people of the state. The people of the state that are pacing around in the environment where their shadows are appearing on the inside of the apartment in a manner that is totally inexplicable and irreconcilable with anything that the natural environment would entail. You're not just walking by, you're not just minding your business, you're in an environment that is supernatural, and you are engaging what are the elements of monitoring as I have expounded upon it on my website, where again I advocate the solution for surveillance and gang stalking that is committed by the government in concert with the people of the state who are seeking to avoid being exposed for this, and doing so by, again, averting attention away from your ability to see my documentation. And this is why the entity is not engaged in any legitimate investigation. The entity is not investigating anything. There is no legitimate question or mystery regarding who owns the content, who created it, and who is being targeted by the state, and who the entity is seeking to defame by gang stalking. Gang stalking is only done for the purpose of criminally defaming the one who is being targeted because of the very supernatural character of that pattern of conduct. It's not supposed to be something that you are capable of proving. I not only have proved it, the entity that is engaging in gang stalking by proof of evidence, tangible evidence, that would be submissible in court in order to enforce my constitutional and human rights and prosecute the government and the people of the state. The government has now resorted to, as Google is not a private party, Google is a state actor facilitating the government's POC that it is also engaging in, including on its websites, seeking to obstruct justice by hiding that evidence, suppressing it. And this is done by keeping the most relevant internet results off of the venue of the internet where you will ordinarily find
Seconds later,
what is very obviously associated with my name and the name of the evidence, the POC, which is the first thing that should be generating in a Google search associating my name and who I am and my evidence, which is the POC. This is a screen recording in order to capture what is obstruction of justice. Obstruction of justice with regard to suppressing evidence. The entity is doing that with regard to hiding what it is engaging in against me, which I have proven in evidence. Evidence which is also intentionally suppressed in order to criminally defame myself as I remain subject to that pattern of conduct. This is rooted in what is a desire and a purpose to kidnap and obstruct justice. This is what the entity that is still gang stalking as I remain subject to it at what is Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. That's where this video is captured today. The city of Ontario is indeed gang stalking, like the evidence shows, by the way. This is exactly what I am documenting amongst the people of the state where the pattern of conduct is underway. And this is the entity that is gang stalking as a government system. And so this is exactly the government that's engaging in that POC. This is the government functions that are engaging in suppressing the evidence, using all of the functions of the city of Ontario and doing so while keeping me under surveillance. And every angle of the city of Ontario has been documented engaging in that pattern of conduct, including San Bernardino County, a very heavily documented kidnapper. Okay, they are engaged in kidnapping on multiple occasions while gang stalking in its facilities. I've never committed any crime, and I'm not engaged in anything that is threatening the entity that is gang stalking me. I'm documenting them, and the entity is hostile to that. It's referred to as obstruction of justice while the entity is intentionally suppressing my evidence on the venue of the internet. This is Google, which is a third party. All right. This is P.O.C.